Thank you for coming to James Cook this evening to listen to my talk about growing up in a digitized world. Just before I start, just a little bit about who I am and what I do, where I come from, and why I have a funny name. So my name is Aoife McLaughlin. I come from Ireland and I arrived in JCU 1 year ago next week, I think. I did my undergrad degree in a BA in psychology and English literature. So I kind of straddle two very different places. So I think this has led me to look at my research in a slightly different way than what some other psychologists might. People who are coming from a more pure psychology point of view. For my PhD, I had a Research Council scholarship, which was very nice because it paid for me to do my PhD. And I actually conducted my PhD on the effect that technology is having on our experience of time's passage. I'll talk a bit more about that at the end of the talk. I finished my PhD in 2012, and as I said, I moved to JCU in May 2013, and I've been very happy here. At the minute, I'm doing a bit of research looking at technology use in Singapore and the effect that this is having on undergrad students' cognition. So are students who are using more technology actually able to think faster, able to process information faster? And in a way, are they starting to emulate the technology that they're using? I would consider myself to be a cognitive scientist, so I think this comes from my background with arts as opposed to pure psych. So cognitive science is a mix of computer science, linguistics, psychology, neuroscience, and philosophy. So it kind of brings in a lot of different things. So you have all these areas working together to try and understand the human mind. Okay. So technology, why do we need to talk about technology? Why is it important and why are we all using it? So I'm not sure, are most people aware? Is it just me who wasn't as aware? But MOE actually have a master plan in action. We're in the third phase of the master plan, which is all based on using information communication technology in the classroom. Phase 1 started in 1997 and ran until 2002. Phase 1 of the master plan was all about laying the groundwork. So the Ministry of Education, of course, are very intelligent people and realize that there's no point in trying to push for use of technology in the classroom if we don't have the basic groundwork or the basic frameworks in place for the staff to use this technology. So as such, they had to put in entirely new computer networks into an awful lot of schools, had to build on the capacities of the teachers. And at the end of the Master Plan Phase 1, we had 363 primary schools in Singapore with this fully networked school system. And they had trained 61, I think, ICT role models. So these role models, the idea was that they were already showing to be involved in using this technology in the classroom or wanted to use this technology in the classroom. And this was, at this point, it was overhead projectors, things like that. We're still talking 1990 or 1997 to 2002, it's quite a while ago. But these ICT mentors wanted to use the technology in a better way and also in a way that engaged the students better. Because this was one of MOE's big points. They said that if they were going to pay for this infrastructure to be put in place, then we needed to be using it in the right way. There's no point in having all of this technology and just throwing it at the students and forcing certain things into this technology. If you can use an overhead projector and use it in the right way, then why pay for fancy software, fancy video conferencing if you don't actually need to pay for it? Now things have changed since then. Of course, in order to keep up with the Joneses, we all have to be able to do this. But anywho, moving on. So Masterplan 2, once Masterplan 1 was finished and they had this infrastructure in place and they had the groundwork done, they were able to move into Masterplan 2, which was recognizing the successes of the schools and the staff who were actually using this technology in the way that they wanted. This involved going into the schools, naming some schools as future Singapore schools, and naming some schools as lead ICT schools, which of course is a nice title to have on your school. They also made sure and put in place some examinations in order to make sure that the students were competent in the areas that they needed to be competent in. Because as you can kind of see from this quote down here, it is a competitive necessity to have employees that are fluent in the ways of the world, not simply a luxury. So in Singapore, we don't want to be sending people out into the workplace who can't use technology. It's not just something extra that you have on your CV anymore. It's the basics. You need to be able to understand, well, first off, the basics of how to turn on and off a computer, how to use Word, how to use Excel. And if you aren't able to use them, you quickly fall behind. So MOE was thinking ahead and really putting these things in place. So making sure that the students were capable of using the technology for data analysis once they got to grade 10, and were able to bring this with them as they move forward. Masterplan Tree then is actually still ongoing. So we're in 2009 to 2014. So Masterplan Tree wraps up this year. Masterplan Tree has 4 main objectives. The first is competency in self-directed teaching. So MOE wants the students to be able to look for their own information. They want students to be involved in their own teaching. They don't want them just to be sitting there soaking up knowledge. They want them to actively go and look for the knowledge themselves. This is a big thing. And recently we have had Singapore topping some scales on this type of thinking, this type of work. So I think the younger generations that are coming through are actually getting better at this type of self-directed teaching. The next thing that Masterplan 3 wanted to hit on was tailoring experiences. So like I said, there's no point in using a really, really over-the-top type of technology in teaching if you're in a classroom with 2 students. If you're in a classroom with 2 students, you're probably better to just engage with them and talk with them and have them talk back. However, sometimes the temptation is there to actually use the technology when you have it, but we have to tailor these things. Advancing learning, this was the third aim. This links in with the competency in self-directed teaching. Advancing learning is this idea that you can, if you're very interested in a topic, you can actually go further with it. So during class time, you might have learned a certain amount about areas of the brain and what these areas are involved in. And when you go home, you're able to click on, look at your app on your iPad, and you can look at a 3D model of the brain, zoom in, zoom out, chop it in half if you want, have a look at what it might look like inside. So it's, if you are a student who excels, you're able to go beyond that point. You can take it to the next level. And their final aim was to learn anywhere. So students should be able to access information anywhere. They should be able to build on what they've been learning in class anywhere. And we actually do see this a lot. Every coffee shop you go into, every McDonald's you pass by, you see students inside there on their laptops, having their coffee and doing their work. So I think definitely in this one, MOE has met its objective. So this is one of the main reasons why in Singapore it's important. I think MOE is doing a really, really good job on that. They've seen what needs to be done for the future and they're really pushing for it. But like I said, tailoring experiences is definitely important, and using the technology in a way that is actually interesting for the students is important. Timothy Teo, he was a researcher in NTU when he published this study. I think he has since moved to Australia. But he conducted a computer attitude questionnaire on about, sorry for the feedback, on about 300 students within NTU. And he found, in general, very, very positive attitudes towards the computers. So he looked at computer anxiety, computer competency, and general positivity towards ICT. So, in general, he found that all of his participants were skewed towards positivity towards these computers, and there was no difference between genders in his study. So whether it was a male student, female student, they tended to enjoy using the computers the same. Males were just slightly higher, but nothing to worry about. You might think that that's fairly obvious, that students enjoy using computers, but it's not always the way. Research that I've conducted in JCU just in the last few months has found that computer attitude scale, which is very similar to Theo's computer attitude questionnaire, has no link with the amount of technology that the students are using. So statistically, I found that if the student likes computers more, they're not necessarily using computers more. And that's an important thing to always think about. You can like something, but whether you're actually engaging with it is another thing. So I can enjoy playing golf, but maybe I just don't do it all that much, and that's why I enjoy it. Maybe I like the idea of it more than I actually like the process of it. So a little bit more of a focus on Asia. Asia in general is in a technology boom, and definitely an ICT boom. So ICT is information communication technology. So your mobile phone, iPad, laptop. These are the technologies that are in the biggest boom right now. Genevieve Bell, another researcher who has looked at technology use in Asia, she has coined the area or the time as the age of the thumb. So the idea is you're constantly using your thumb, you're on your mobile phone, you're working your thumbs all the time. Mobile phones in general in Asia, based on research that Genevieve has done, seem to signify communication, information, and augmentation for the people who use it. So communication, obviously, you're showing that you can communicate with people, that you're constantly available for people around you. This is important. You want to be someone who people like to contact, and you want to show that you are there. Information, finding information quickly. Gone are those moments where you have a debate with someone over lunch or dinner, where you say, who was that actor who was in such and such movie? And you think about it, and it plays in your head all day. Straight away, you have your phone, you Google, and you have the answer. So we have any information we need at our fingertips. And the third one, augmentation. This is the one that I find the most interesting. This is augmentation of yourself. So my phone represents who I am. I need to have the nicest phone to show that I can have the nicest phone. But on top of having a nice phone, you'll also have a nice picture. Maybe you have a picture of one of your children as a screensaver. Maybe you'll have a little dongle hanging off the top, a little Hello Kitty dongle. Seem to be very popular to show that you like Hello Kitty. So you have different things that all just augment who you are representing as yourself. And this was one of the #1 things that Genevieve Bell came across when she traveled all around Asia, trying to figure out why ICT is so popular here. In Singapore, there's more mobile phones than citizens, and by a large percentage. Then again, there's an awful lot of people in Singapore who aren't citizens, so we need to take those statistics for what they are. Just as an added thing, Samsung ran this Eyes on the Road campaign specifically in Singapore. This was a targeted action towards Singapore. Driving while on your phone is illegal in Singapore. While you're stationary in the car, it's actually allowed. So if you were stopped at a traffic lights, then you can use your phone. If you're moving at all, you can't. I think that little loophole of being stopped at the traffic lights probably opens up a lot of people to taking out their phone, having a look. If it was just a full-blown, it's illegal, then hopefully people wouldn't do it as much. So Eyes on the Road was an app that you download onto your phone. You get into your car and you press, I'm driving now. It sends an automatic message to anyone who rings you or texts you saying you're driving, and once she reaches her destination or he reaches his destination, they'll call you back. Don't call them again, wait. And you could clock up your miles. So it was able to track where you were driving, how far you were going, and when you were going there. So Samsung offered big rewards for people who had the most miles driven. So the most miles with their eyes on the road. You could win iPads, you could win more phones, just to place all around your dashboard. So this was all to don't call, don't text, pledge your attention. And the reason for this is Singaporeans like to use their phone when driving. 83% of Singapore drivers, so this was the sample that Samsung did their study on. 83% of drivers admitted to using their mobile phones without a hands-free kit while in their car and while driving. The majority said they were using GPS, map applications, and texting. So you might think, well, I'm just using my GPS, it's not a big deal. But you know how often your eyes are going over there and you're pressing the buttons and it's not the right location and you're just trying to find your friend's block and you just don't know where to go. All of these things add up. Texting, of course, is ludicrous. People think that, you can multitask. I'm not even looking at the screen. I can text with but all it takes is for someone else to be texting coming in the other direction towards you, and then you have a bit of an accident. Complacency was the big reason that his respondents said that they were using their phone. So they felt safe. They thought, well, I'm a good driver. I'm allowed to do this. I'm able to do it. I use my phone so much that I can multitask. It's not a problem. A big reason for this was that only, I think about 10% of respondents had actually had a near miss or an accident while using their phone. So you do get this false sense of security. Thing is, like I said, you just need that other person coming towards you to also be at half attention, and then you have your accident. An awful lot of his respondents as well said that they felt work pressure to respond to their text messages. And this is definitely a thing. You hear your email beep, and you're like, I need to check that. Or your phone rings, and you're on your way to work, you need to check to see, is this my 9 o'clock meeting? Am I going to be late? What's happening? This is just something that we need to move on from that. We need to be strong enough to say, no, I am driving right now. And there is actually plenty of apps that you can download that will read your text messages to you and also send a message back to the person to say, you're driving, or they're driving, you won't be having a response. So I think those are quite good. You still get to hear the information, but you can choose whether or not you want to stop, pull over, and actually call the person back. 93% think it's unsafe when they see others using their phone when driving. So although 83% are using their phone when driving, 93% of the respondents thought it was unsafe. They knew what they were doing was bad, but it was the other people. They were the bad people. And 75% would actually ask that other driver to stop using their phone. So if I was in a cab and the taxi uncle takes out his phone and starts using it, I say, no, don't use your phone while you're driving. Then I get out, I get into my car, and I'm on my phone. Maybe it's that we feel a little bit more in control, that it's okay if I'm responsible for something happening to me, but I don't want someone else to be responsible. I don't know, but it's definitely not a great thing. So these, to me, we see all of these things in the newspapers, technology is harming your mind, technology is causing this, that, and the other. For me, these are the real risks of technology. These are the things that will actually kill you. The other things we can deal with. And just a few examples of what the newspapers actually like to focus on. So what have we got? We've got murders, we've got another murder down here. We also have brain training, which is a good thing. Let's have a look. So social websites harm a child's brain. And we have a top neuroscientist warning parents of this. Social websites, whether or not they're actually going to harm your child's brain, not very, very unlikely. But who are these top neuroscientists who are warning parents? I'll show you a video in a minute of one of the top neuroscientists, sorry. Brain training. So harming the brain, and then 2 seconds later we're hearing, oh, technology is good. Brain training. You need to do brain training. You can attend brain training classes and courses in order to improve your cognition. Even at the start of the talk, I was saying I'm investigating to see whether this is something that is occurring. So is technology actually increasing our capacity for information processing? Next one. It was like he was playing a video game. Rampage sailor gets 25 years for killing officer. So this is all about Call of Duty. I don't know if it's a video game that you're familiar with, but apparently it's very, very violent and bad things happen because the students use it, or because the adolescents are using it. Again, this is, we've blamed music, we've blamed TV, we've blamed all of these other things for violence in society. Really, I think there's just violence sometimes in society, and these are coincidences. So these are psychological things that the newspapers seem to focus on. You don't really see a newspaper headline of 93% of Singaporeans think texting when driving is unsafe. Whereas that should be the headline. It should be the focus. But we like to focus on psychology, and that's good because I'm a psychologist. And this, sorry, just jump out before she starts. This next video is just Baroness Susan Greenfield. So she is one of the top neuroscientists that the newspapers like to misquote. Baroness Susan Greenfield does a lot of good work in the area of neuroscience, of course, but she looks at technology use and the young mind. So how is technology use affecting the young mind? And what you'll see from this video, I hope, is that she doesn't say it's good and she doesn't say it's bad. She just says that things are changing. But newspapers, the press, tend not to hear it that way. They hear 1 or 2 words and they pull it out. Oh, sorry. Go mind of her.
I'm also fascinated by what happens to the very young brain. And the reason I find it particularly fascinating and important to think about at the moment is because we know that the human brain is exquisitely evolved to adapt to the environment. And it follows, therefore, that if the environment is changing in an unprecedented way, then the brain will change in an unprecedented way. And what's very exciting about the human brain, people don't necessarily realize how unique and special they are. Even if you're a clone, that's to say an identical twin, you will have a unique configuration of brain cell connections, because as your brain grows after birth, it grows much more than a chimp's brain will grow. So these connections have the chance to mirror, to reflect, to be shaped, to be strengthened, to every way reflect your particular unique experiences. So this is what I call the mind, the personalization of the brain through this unique configuration of brain cell connections. And what happens is, first you grow up in this unconditional way, just saying how sweet, how fast, how cold and bright, and whatever comes in, because there's nothing to retaliate, whatever comes in will be unconditionally accepted by your brain and it will shape and change things. But as you grow, so those pre-existing connections will form a basis for you to have an evaluative judgment about what's happening. So as things come in now, you can evaluate them and assess them against the checks and balances of the connections that are there already. And at the same time, that ongoing experience will upgrade and update the existing connections. So your brain is in this fabulous dialogue with every experience you have in the outside world. And that's what makes you so special. For 100,000 years we've stalked the planet. No one has a brain, or rather a mind, like you do. It follows, therefore, that if we place this very sensitive and vulnerable and impressionable brain into a new environment, let's say one that's only 2-dimensional and one that only offers 2 senses, sound and vision, then we might expect some different changes. That's not to say they're going to be universally good or universally bad, but most neuroscientists will say it's a given that the brain will adapt, therefore, and change, because that's what it is evolved to do. The area I like to research on here is what's happening in the brain when this goes on, and what kind of person will the next generation, what kind of people will they be?
Okay, so if you're thinking, she didn't really say anything that interesting there, it's because she didn't. She didn't give a view on whether it's good or whether it's a bad. It was still interesting, but it's not what the newspapers are reporting. But people love to take Susan Greenfield up wrong. They like to report it because she is a baroness, because she's very close to the Queen of England. They like to quote her a lot and often misquote her. Let me see. So we have this kind of utopian and dystopian view of technology. And this is within the research. I'm moving away from the media side of things. So there's the people who are very, very for technology, and there's the people who are very, very against technology. And sometimes what you find is that these are the same people. So everyone is kind of teetering and doesn't really know what way to go. Most of this research is conducted on UK and US students, but research has actually shown that Singapore, Seoul, and Taipei appear to have very similar trends. So trends of usage. So we can just assume that this would probably apply here. First one, apologies for this slide being a bit wordy. These ones just are slightly, I'm sorry. First one on the for side, so the utopian view of technology, is social relationships. Research has given lots, I have lots and lots of citations in here, because there's a lot of research that has shown that technology use improves social relationships. We have adolescents use the internet to communicate with family and friends. They use email and blogs and social networking. So for me, moving to Singapore, if it wasn't for Facebook, Skype, WhatsApp, these types of things, I probably wouldn't be still in contact with half of the people who I am. You know, I'm able to update people very quickly, very easily, and still be involved in their lives even though I'm so far away. And that's quite nice. Teenagers are using their online persons to manage their offline friendships. So they might be using Facebook to create events. They might actually be inviting more than just their friends to these events. Did you hear about there was a party last week in the US? 2,500 people, I think, showed up to this party and trashed the parents' house, of course. But anyway, they are using this technology to manage their offline friendships as well. It's not all about having a second life that's purely online. They're more socially active offline. They participate in more clubs, more organizations than non-users do. And it's also positively related to the size of one's real-life social networks. So your online social network, if you have a lot of friends on there, the research is saying that you're more likely to have a lot of friends in your real day-to-day life as well. Frequency of internet use is, of course, linked positively with the amount of friends that you have online. Basically just saying the more you are online, the more friends you have online. It's fairly straightforward. So that is your social relationships, and this is one of the most researched areas and the areas that has the most positive sides. So the argument for the utopian side. So we swing over to our against side, and again, we've got social relationships over there. So people are arguing it on both sides. The hours of internet use, like hours of TV use, negatively correlate with the time spent with family and friends. So the more technology you're using, the less time you're spending with your family and friends. These might seem slightly at odds with the other figures. Sometimes they are entirely at odds with the other figures, but these can actually fit with each other. So even though you have similar friend size groups and you're communicating with your friends online and you're using it to supplement as opposed to actually detract from your offline friendships, the amount of time you spend on the computer is time that you're not physically with your friends. Unless you're sitting in a room together, Skyping with each other or WhatsApping each other, which of course does happen as well during class, but normally you're not actually in the room with them. Adolescent internet users reported feeling less close to persons with whom they communicated mostly by email. So if you only ever have relationships with a person through email, you don't get that same connection. And this is definitely a big thing for adolescent relationships, like romantic relationships. So you have teenagers who are shy and who really don't want to go up and talk to that person in class and tell them that they like them. So maybe they WhatsApp them, or maybe they talk to them on Facebook, but they find it hard to get past that point and actually engage with the person one-on-one. We also have an increase in weak online friendships leads to increase in weak online ties and decrease in strong offline ties with increased internet use. All I'm trying to say here is the more weak online friendships that you have, the less strong, strong offline relationships you're going to have. Basically the more friendships you have online, the less you're going to have close friendships offline. So that's social relationship again. Back over to our for technology use, our utopian side, cognitive effects. One of the big ones that you hear lately is that using video games increases your reaction time, increases your ability to process visual information. So you can imagine if you use a first player fighter game where you're constantly waiting for new targets to pop up that you need to shoot, you're actually going to get much quicker reaction time, and your visual processing skills, you need to pick out whether this is a friend or a foe very quickly. You're going to improve and practice these skills. The research is showing that yes, this does happen, but it might actually be a little bit more specified than what we think. So maybe we're not able to take that practiced information or those practiced processing skills over to another task. Maybe I'm good in the game, but I'm not going to be as good in real life. Working memory can be trained, brain training. We can improve on the amount of working memory that we have. This is definitely a controversial one. There is probably as much research on the pro side as there is on the against side for this. But this is why we have our balancing scales. Mental stimulation can slow the rate of cognitive decline. This link leads on from the brain training. If you continue to do brain training, hopefully you won't experience the same decline. Perhaps you'll be able to stave off dementia, Alzheimer's, but then again, we can't be sure because we can't look into the future and see what's going to happen in 20, 30, 40 years' time. But again, this is the positive side. The negative side, cognitive effects seem to be based within sleep and attention. So the more technology that a child is using, the more likelihood of them experiencing cognitive or attentional effects during class. So if a child is using more than 7-8 hours of computer and TV a day, or is engaging with more than 7 or 8 hours of computer or TV a day, this can lead to attention problems during class the next day. You'd imagine that you'd be able to realize that this would happen because they're getting so much entertainment from the computer screen that class is going to seem pretty boring after that. So it's hard to pay attention. Increase in nighttime ICT use will lead to reduced quality of sleep. You know that, of course, if you stay up far too late using your phone, you're not going to have as much sleep, but even the amount of sleep that you do have will be disrupted. So you've got too much information going through your brain, you're running over things. Even you might find that if you wake up in the middle of the night, the first thing you do is reach for your phone to check if anyone texts me. Oh, while I have it on, I'll just check Facebook, maybe. And then before you know it, another hour has gone past and you're wide awake. Phones even have nighttime settings now so that you can turn the brightness down or invert the colors. So that instead of a white background, there's a black background with white writing, so it's easier on your eyes when you're lying in bed. Teenagers who use phones late at night will suffer from more daytime sleepiness. My parents used to take my phone from me every night when I was doing my final exams, my A-levels. They used to take my phone from me so I couldn't text my friends. And unbeknownst to them, I had a second phone that I used to slip the SIM card out the back of my phone, and I give them, oh, don't take my phone from me. And then I go upstairs to bed and I put the SIM card into a different phone. So they're happily texting for the night. And of course, I was tired. I was tired the next day, but it was worth it. It was worth it. Okay, so that's again against. Over to our pro side, civic engagement. We've seen a stark increase in civic engagement with the use of these technologies. So people who are using more ICT are more aware, more politically aware, and civically engaged than those who use less. This should come as no surprise. The more you are online, the more news you're reading, the more up-to-date you are on what's happening around the world. Of course, the more engaged you're going to be. This is a good thing. We also can show that there was an 11 percentage point increase in voting in the 2004 presidential election in the States, and they think this is solely related to the technology that was being used. So I don't know if anyone has noticed, when there is a vote going on, Facebook will have a little box that you tick to say you voted, and then you get a little badge on your page that says, I voted, and then it'll tell your friends to go vote too. It's amazing how powerful these things are, because you could just tick the box and say you voted, but that would feel like cheating. So you actually do feel like, I should really go out and vote because I want to tick the box. I want my friends to know that I voted too. They voted, I vote. And it's amazing how effective these types of things are. Of course, as well, with the technology use, adolescents and young people are being more exposed to the different sides of an election. So they see, oh, who are these people who are on this side? Who are the people on this side? What do I really feel about it? Which, if they had to actively go out and seek the information, maybe they wouldn't. But it's quite good. But of course, on the negative side, we have aggression. It's kind of hard to deny that some of the technology is leading to an increase in aggression. Nearly half of heavy gamers are under 17, and during these video games, especially if they're violent video games, they're contributing to aggressive thought and behavior. If you spend 7-8 hours a day looking at something that is very, very aggressive and something that's very, very violent, of course it's going to rub off a little bit. Whether or not it'll actually directly lead to the aggression, or whether we're just looking for some kind of an excuse, is hard to fully say, but the research is kind of pointing that violent video games is leading to an increase in violence. So 81% of adolescents say they play games online. This is 2006, so you can imagine that this has probably increased since then. Findings suggest the internet use may be increasing the level of aggressive behavior in youth. I have my own theories on that, which I will share maybe in a minute. Okay, so this is our balancing scales. For some reason, even though we have pretty much the same things going on both, we have civic engagement and aggression are the only two that are different, but you can see that they're flip sides of the same coin. It still tends to be slightly more weighted towards against, especially in the media. It might seem really odd that we have social relationships on one side, social relationships on the other side. Everything's very, very balanced. But even within the research, you see this as well. I'm just going to zoom in on this a little bit. So I'm not sure if you've heard of this researcher, Kraut. Kraut conducted one of the most cited pieces of research on internet usage that's ever been done. So 1998 is when he published this piece of research, and it was called the Internet Paradox. In this piece of research, he put forward that the more social, he was saying that internet is a social technology. You're engaging with other people, yet for some reason, the more internet that you use, the less sociable you become. So this is why he was calling it the Internet Paradox. His research can never be conducted again. He managed to get an entire town in the US who had never had the internet in their homes before. 1995 to 1996 is when he conducted the research, so the internet was just coming through. He went in, he monitored exactly what they were using the internet for, how long they were using the internet for, where they went, who they were talking to on their day-to-day lives. He did everything. For this year, he was god of that town. He knew what they were doing at any time. And he actually found that his participants were using the internet for 2.5 hours a week on average, each participant. And this was a big number at the time. This was shocking. This is going to hurt them. And he found that it did. He found that the more they used, the less they spoke with their family, the less they interacted with their real life friends, the more they just kind of escaped into this fantasy world. And as I said, this was big, big news. Negative effects. 2002, Kraut comes out with some more research from the same cohort of participants. He said, Internet Paradox Revisited. When he went back, he says that the people who he had already done the research on were now experiencing positive effects. So he said, I take back what I said. Turns out technology is good. Technology is improving their social relationships. Every single thing he said in the first piece of research, he took back. And this struck me as kind of odd. I was like, I don't know, maybe it's true, but there's maybe something else going on. And when you look at who is funding the research, and this is the second piece of research, not the first. So the second piece of research was funded by Apple, by Bell, Bellcore, CNET, Intel, Hewlett-Packard, Lotus. There's a whole list of them. So this was the second piece of research. I'm not casting aspersions on Kraut and his colleagues. I'm sure the research is still valid, but it is something you need to always be aware of. Who is funding the research? And this is something that you come across time and time and time again in this area. There's countless papers out there that are funded, of course, by Apple, of course, by Hewlett-Packard. They want to know what technology is doing. If they find something good, they're going to push that. They have the money to put it in the newspapers to say, our technology will improve your life. Here are the statistics. You know, statistics mean a lot. If they find something bad, they don't come forward with that. They're not going to say anything. So it just kind of goes away. So again, I'm not saying that it's not true, but it's definitely something that I think needs to be told about. And any time that you read an article in a newspaper that says technology is bad, 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 or technology is good, 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 always try to find out who did this research, who paid for this research, because it's a big thing. Okay, so for the last while I've been talking about other people's research. What exactly do I do? My research kind of straddles this area of time pressure and modernity. So modernity is just how life is changing, the modern world, and for us that is the influx of all of this information communication technology. Not the only person to think that there's a link between time and technology use. So we had Chesley, 2010, 2,000 participants in his sample, and they felt that information communication technology use was positively connected to the pace of life and subjective time pressure. So time pressure is that feeling that you get when you know you need to be somewhere or you know you need to do something and it's just a deadline looming. Pace of life is linked. So yeah, the majority or his sample felt that this was linked. And that's 2,000 other people, so I feel like, okay, I'm not the only one. There's others out there who think the same. Some research or a model developed by Rossa, 2007, brought together this acceleration cycle. So at the top you have the economic motor. Time is money. This time is money leads to technological acceleration. If time is money, then I want a machine that will do things faster for me. I don't want to waste any more time. This acceleration leads to an acceleration of social change. The more that technology is accelerating, the more society needs to accelerate with it, or else we will be left behind. Social change will lead to the acceleration of pace of life, which is the hurried feeling that you get, and the general we need to move faster, which then technology needs to increase as well. Because if we're already moving faster, we've caught up, we need to go around again. And I think this is definitely something that's worth studying. It might sound a little bit, why bother? But Levine in 1997 conducted a study on pace of life. And he went to 31 different different countries in the world and checked to see how fast is pace of life in each one of these countries. Ireland, where I'm from, came second, which might shock people, but we were number 2 in 1997. Switzerland was number 1. Singapore was 15th, I think, in the 31, so halfway down. And the US was maybe about 10. Oh, you might wonder as well why Singapore was so low down. It's because it's hot. So the pace of life is slightly slower in countries that are hotter. Singapore, I think, is probably going so fast, but it was brought back down by that heat level. So people walk a little bit slower. And that was one of the things that Levine was trying to look at. He took the pace of life quite literal and looked at walking speeds. He looked at other things as well, but he did look at walking speeds, and that was a big one. So Levine links pace of life to heart disease. The faster pace of life in a country, the more heart disease that country is going to have. So the more time pressure you're experiencing, the more fast food you're eating, all of this will lead to an increase in heart disease. Of course, we don't want that to happen. So if technology is actually affecting how I experience time, then surely, I can control for this. So in my PhD research, that was exactly what I decided to look at. Do individuals who use more technology in their daily lives experience time differently than individuals who use less technology? When you go on holidays and people advise you, turn off your mobile phone when you're on holidays. Just don't have it on. Don't look at it. Don't look at the computer. I was actually trying to see if there was a cognitive basis for that advice. So is that advice just something that we say to each other? Or is there something about the technology that's speeding me up inside and actually causing me to feel time going faster? So what I found was, yes, people who were using more technology were experiencing time differently, and they were experiencing time as moving faster. So you experience time moving faster, you experience more time pressure. If I have a deadline at 5 o'clock and for me time is going fast, then of course I'm going to be more pressurized by this. Whether in reality it's coming faster or not, I feel it. It's all inside me. What's interesting about this as well is even though pace of life links with heart disease and time pressure, countries that have more time pressure appear to have more heart disease. They're also the happier countries. So they're the countries that if you ask their citizens, are you happy? How is your life satisfaction? They will say it's quite high. Because we live in this society that values events. The more events that I can fit into a time period, the happier I must be. I have to be happy, because otherwise why would I be doing all of these things? Look at all of these things I can do. And technology allows us to do that. We can book our flights to Bali while looking up, what's happening in Europe online. We can say, oh, and I'm also going to order these few dresses for the weekend. And then you've so many things going on at once. So of course you must have a high life satisfaction rating. I also was saying that I'm interested in seeing if people who use more technology also have an increased speed of cognitive processing. Bear with me for a second, if you use more technology and this leads to time going faster, so more time seems to elapse, does that give me more time to actually process information? So in a car crash, it seems like time slows down. The reason for this is that your information processing inside your head has sped up so fast that you're almost like Superman. So Superman, when he goes super fast and everything is going very, very slow around him. That's what happens in a car accident. If technology is causing me to have a little bit of that, then maybe I can take in more information from my surroundings in a shorter amount of time, which then flips to actually being able to process information at a faster rate. Is the increase in heart disease and the increase in pace of life and time pressure worth being faster at doing these things? Is it worth having a higher cognitive ability? I think it is, because the time side of it is purely in your head. As long as you're aware that time isn't actually going faster, as long as you can remind yourself and step away from the technology for a minute or two and say, it's just because of the phone, then surely it's worth having the faster speeds the rest of the time. I don't know. It's this is just the way I think about it. I have one last video here that I just wanted to show you. Interestingly, it's a video that's just gone viral on Facebook in the last few days, and it's about social networking. So it's about using your phone and being so immersed in social networking that you don't have the social relationships in other aspects. And it is slam poetry, and there is one swear word in it. So apologies, I can't censor it. That's another thing with the internet. We can't censor everything. So I'll just throw this on.
I have 422 friends, yet I'm lonely. I speak to all of them every day, yet none of them really know me. The problem I have sits in the spaces between looking into their eyes or at a name on a screen. I took a step back and opened my eyes. I looked around and realised that this media we call social is anything but when we open our computers and it's our doors we shut. All this technology we have, it's just an illusion. Community, companionship, a sense of inclusion. Yet when you step away from this device of delusion, you awaken to see a world of confusion. A world where we're slaves to the technology we mastered, where information gets sold by some rich, greedy bastard. A world of self-interest, self-image, self-promotion, where we all share our best bits but leave out the emotion. We're at our most happy with an experience we share, but is it the same if no one is there? Be there for your friends and they'll be there too, but no one will be if a group message will do. We edit and exaggerate, crave adulation. We pretend not to notice the social isolation. We put our words into order until our lives are glistening. We don't even know if anyone is listening. Being alone isn't a problem. Let me just emphasise, if you read a book, paint a picture, or do some exercise, you're being productive and present, not reserved and recluse. You're being awake and attentive and putting your time to good use. So when you're in public and you start to feel alone, put your hands behind your head, step away from the phone. You don't need to stare at your menu or at your contact list. Just talk to one another. Learn to coexist. I can't stand to hear the silence of a busy commuter train where no one wants to talk through the fear of looking insane. We're becoming unsocial. It no longer satisfies to engage with one another and look into someone's eyes. We're surrounded by children who, since they were born, have watched us living like robots and think it's the norm. It's not very likely you'll make world's greatest dad if you can't entertain a child without using an iPad. When I was a child, I'd never be home. Be out with my friends on our bikes, we would roam. I'd wear holes in my trainers and graze up my knees. We'd build our own clubhouse high up in the trees. Now the park's so quiet it gives me a chill. See no children outside and the swings hanging still. There's no skipping, no hopscotch, no church and no steeple. We're a generation of idiots, smartphones and dumb people. So look up from your phone, shut down the display. Take in your surroundings, make the most of today. Just one real connection is all it can take to show you the difference that being there can make. Be there in the moment that she gives you the look that you remember forever as when love overtook. The time she first holds your hand or first kiss your lips. The time you first disagree but still love her to bits. The time you don't have to tell hundreds of what you've just done because you want to share this moment with just this one. The time you'll sell your computer so you can buy a ring for the girl of your dreams who is now the real thing. The time you want to start a family, and the moment when you first hold your little girl and get to fall in love again. The time she keeps you up at night and all you want is rest, and the time you wipe away the tears as your baby flees the nest. The time your baby girl returns with a boy for you to hold, and the time he calls you granddad and makes you feel real old. The time you take in all you've made just by giving life attention, and how you're glad you didn't waste it by looking down at some invention. The time you hold your wife's hand, sit down beside her bed, you tell her that you love her, lay a kiss upon her head. She then whispers to you quietly, as her heart gives a final beat, that she's lucky she got stopped by that lost boy in the street. none of these times ever happened. You never had any of this. When you're too busy looking down, you don't see the chances you miss. So look up from your phone, shut down those displays. We have a finite existence, a set number of days. Don't waste your life getting caught in the net, as when the end comes, nothing's worse than regret. I'm guilty too of being part of this machine, this digital world we are heard but not seen, where we type as we talk and we read as we chat, where we spend hours together without making eye contact. So don't give in to a life where you follow the hype. Give people your love, don't give them your like. Disconnect from the need to be heard and defined. Go out into the world, leave distractions behind. Look up from your phone, shut down that display. Stop watching this video, live life the real way.
Okay, so that video now has 20 million views. It was 10 million earlier on today. So although he is telling us to look up from our phones, we're all looking down having a watch. I think it's a nice sentiment. Obviously you can't live without your phone at this point, you need it. But sometimes we do need to put them aside. We need to realize that technology is just technology. But I think it's also giving us lots and lots of positives. We need to take both sides on board and use it in the right way. And that's me. Anyone, any questions? Yeah? For the first question, I haven't actually had a look at any research that has pinpointed an age. I think this is definitely something that would be up to the parents. So it's okay to have your children looking at using an iPad now and again, as long as they're not on an iPad for 10 hours every day at the age of 5. At the same time, it is still the same medium as a TV at that age. Once you get older and they can access different things, then of course the parents definitely need to be able to shut down what their children can be seeing online, because as we said, it's not censored. They can look up for whatever they want to look for. For the second question, looking at radiation, this would definitely just be based on my personal opinion. I think, of course, pen and paper writing skills would need to come first. I don't think we should move to an entire techno-based schooling. And outside of that, I can't quite answer your question. Okay? So with the second question, the radiation from the phones, radiation that you're looking at would be from phones. Some people feel that wireless and Wi-Fi signals in the air could also be adding to this radiation. It's not actually been proven. So unless the school is actually having students use mobile phones that they're holding up to their head, I don't think that's actually a concern. Yeah. With all types of addiction or compulsions like that, it would always be based on whether it's affecting your day-to-day life. So if you find that you can use a computer for 4 hours a day, you can go online for 4 hours a day, you still feel quite rested, you're quite happy in your job, you eat, you sleep, you go out for a drink, these things are okay. If it's a case that you can't leave the house because you need to be on the computer, or you can't shower because you need to be on the computer and it starts to actually affect how you run your life, then that's when it becomes a problem. And that's the same with a lot of psychological disorders. It comes down to, if it's a problem for you, then it's a problem. Yeah. How it progresses? The problem with technology and how it's advancing is that it's advancing really, really, really fast. So even when I did my PhD, so I would have started my data collection in maybe 2008, and I developed this questionnaire, which I mentioned very briefly. It was the Everyday Technology Usage Questionnaire. And in that questionnaire, I focused on ICT, but the things I was looking at were laptops, mobile phones, and PDAs. You don't hear about PDAs anymore. I didn't have iPad in because iPad wasn't a thing. Now we're on to what, like iPad 4 or something? Like things just move so fast that the research itself goes out of date really quickly. So you would have to just look at the years in which the research was conducted and then take it from there as to what technology was being used. It's a real pity, and it's another one of the reasons why that Kraut et al. Study that I said, where they had 1995, that they looked at the internet that had just been brought into people's houses, they had this massive, massive opportunity, and they made a good hand at the research, but it's all out of date now anyway. We need to redo it again. Yeah. For my research, so I'm looking at Singapore at the minute. So I'm looking to see if there's an increase in their information processing speeds. But I'm also conducting the same research in Ireland, and I'm going to conduct a comparison between the two countries to see if there's any differences. One of my main reasons for doing this is I actually feel that there will be more information communication technology use in Singapore. I think they're going to be using more engaged with it. However, my initial look at my data is showing the opposite. It's saying that Ireland is more positively skewed in the ICT use. Time will tell. Age group tends to be undergrad students with a lot of research. So sample size was 120 overall, so 60 here, 60 in Ireland. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Low apparently in happiness, and you said that was one of the things that is associated with the differences. So the happiness people and the ICT connected. Why are Singaporeans ICT connected and yet not happy? Maybe that's why you're showing that they're not so connected. Or
something that I was thinking was that maybe the ICT is so ingrained here that we're not even registering when we're using it. Maybe when we're on the MRT and we take out our phone to check something, we don't even count that as time we're using ICT, because I really feel like people are using more here, and it's going to take a little while. I'm still trying to plow through the numbers at the minute. Yeah?
Have there been any studies done to look at the capacity of students to listen actively with the introduction of massive amounts of ICT? Last year, the Ministry of Education started en masse for the O-level students listening comprehension for the first time. Oh. And students take it because they have whatever with the iPad or mobile phone something, and they do that comprehension, which might suggest that there are certain unanticipated effects of technology.
Yeah, definitely something that would be worth looking into.
Yes.
I might try and work that into one of my one of my students is doing some research looking at technology use and loneliness across the lifespan. So she's going to try and look at different age groups across. So I think it might be nice to actually add in something extra as well, because if she can get a nice wide age span like this, it's a good opportunity. Yeah. Thank you. Okay. In your bags, there is a feedback sheet. If you wanted to write down how much you enjoyed the talk, that would be nice. But yeah, there's a feedback sheet in your bags that marketing would like you to fill in. And there's a box at the back of the room that you can put the feedback into. Thank you.